Good morning, everyone. Good morning, UTLA family, parents, and community members. I love giving these updates on Fridays because it's like we can connect with each other and then finish out our workday strong and head into the weekend. Today, we'll be talking about our new member survey, LA County's decision to allow waivers to open some schools for lower grades, LAUSD's new guidance on breakout rooms and one-on-one assessments, and more. Our top line item is our new UTLA member survey on crisis distance learning and the safe reopening of physical schools. We need to hear from you about how distance learning is going for you and your students. We need to hear from you about how you're assessing the relative risk of returning to in-person instruction. The results of this survey will guide our enforcement of the distance learning side letter, the bargaining regarding the reopening of schools as well. The survey was emailed on Wednesday night to UTLA members whose emails we have on file. More than 6,700 members have already completed the survey, but we need everyone to weigh in. If you didn't get the survey, before I say you request it, check your junk mail as well as spam because it could still be there. Now, there's a request form at utla.net. We'll put a link to that request form in the chat. If you hear from your colleagues who didn't get the survey, please share that link with them. We'll also send it around again today, on Friday, today. Our voice is critically important, and that's your voice. We want to hear from you. So please take a few minutes to answer the survey. The survey will be open until October the 9th. On Wednesday, the County Board of Supervisors voted for a limited number of waivers to be granted to schools for transitional kindergarten through second grade classes. The supervisors took this action even though LA County remains in the purple zone, meaning there is widespread COVID-19 transmission in our communities, including illness and death. Given the still too high transmission rates of the coronavirus and a lack of funding to implement uniform health and safety protocols, UTLA remains firm that LAUSD school campuses are not safe to reopen at this time. No date has been set for the reopening of schools. Without a uniform plan for the safe reopening of our schools, the lives of educators, school staff, students, and their families remain at risk. We know some of our most vulnerable students, our younger students, those with special needs and English language learners, are more acutely impacted by remote learning challenges. But we also know that it is those same students and in their communities, predominantly communities of color, living in poverty, that are most acutely impacted by this deadly virus. It is not easy for educators to see any student struggling, but we must let science and these realities guide our actions. COVID-19 is unlike anything we've ever seen before. The disease has killed more than 200,000 people in this country and spreads through our communities rapidly. Workers are being asked to risk their lives every day, and communities of color suffer the most. Nationally, Black and Latino children are #1 in infection and death rates for children from COVID-19. The implications of this inequity are profound for LAUSD, where 90% of our students are of color, and where many of our students' parents have essential jobs that put them more at risk. And these disparities are almost certainly why, in survey after survey of parents, there is a clear racial and income divide on school reopening preferences. Although parents of color and low-income parents are most concerned about how remote learning will affect their children's schooling, they are almost most likely to consider it necessary for right now. One survey found that almost twice as many Black, Latino, and Asian parents wanted schools to be remote compared to white parents. A majority of parents who made less than $50,000 a year wanted schools to avoid in-person instruction for the entire school year. UTLA is currently meeting with the district to discuss one-on-one services on campus for our neediest students and how to ensure such a program is safe and effective. The program would be on a volunteer basis and after school. UTLA's health and safety expectations for reopening schools or any after-school in-person services are that the proper resources and policies, including testing, tracing, personal protective gear, disinfection protocols, and proper ventilation must be in place before we reopen our schools. We stand strongly in favor of the highest safety measures. I have to give a shout out to our Union family in Little Rock, Arkansas, who stood up for safe schools this week. With COVID cases on the rise in the state, teachers there refused to report to work and demanded that they be able to work all virtually with students. Now, that district is handing out suspensions and docking their pay. We stand in solidarity with Little Rock teachers who risk their pay and their jobs to protect their students and their families. The Little Rock Teachers Union has organized a fundraiser to help offset the loss of pay, and we'll put their GoFundMe in the chat below. Our network of progressive teacher unions, locals across the country, are weighing in with local, state, and national officials to support the Little Rock educators. These educators are feeling the solidarity from LA, Oakland, St. Paul, Massachusetts, Arizona, and beyond. How appropriate that these teachers are taking action in Little Rock, where 63 years ago, the Little Rock Nine integrated the all-white Central High School as a part of a test of the Brown versus Board of Education ruling. That landmark court case had its origins 8 years before in Mendez versus Westminster, here in Orange County, where 9-year-old Sylvia Mendez was turned away from a whites-only California public school. Her father started the legal battle that set the stage for the Brown case. It's all about taking on the system and believing they can win and they will win. So on to our updates on crisis distance learning. LAUSD has finally come up with guidance on one-on-one assessments and breakout rooms, and we'll put a link to the document in the chat below. It's also posted on our UTLA Distance Learning Frequently Asked Questions page. The memo says that educators can use breakout groups without necessarily having an adult in each group and can engage students one-on-one for assessments without violating district policy. If an issue or altercation leads to a student or parent accusation, the district has a contractual and statutory obligation to defend educators as long as they are performing the duties of their job. And for the Lpac and DIBELS, the Lpac assessment window is now open, and the assessment can be offered remotely or in person. The Lpac is tied to federal Title I funding and is the district assessment of choice to meet the SB 98 requirement. With the exception of Title III coordinators, all certificated staff and some classified staff, SEIU Local 99, can be trained and certified to administer the assessment. School principals should be pushed to provide support for teachers with a high number of ELL students and develop a plan to help with either delivery of instruction or administering of assessments during this time. Many people have been asking about the security and validity of the assessment. The CDE is developing a letter to parents that needs to be signed and returned, explaining the assessment and expectations for a secure remote testing environment. If at any time a member feels there has been a breach in security, they should, just as they would in an in-person situation, calmly stop the assessment and inform the student that the test will resume if or when the potential breach has been resolved. The examiner should then inform their testing coordinator and administrator what they witnessed and why they felt the security of the assessment was compromised. The state, through SB 98, is also requiring districts to utilize a formative assessment this year to measure student learning, and the district selected DIBELS TRC as the assessment for ELA. The UTLA Distance Learning Work Group is currently pushing back against the district using any additional assessments outside of what is necessary to meet the SB 98 requirements. Teachers should move forward with the DIBELS or TRC assessment and reach out to administrators about any scheduling conflicts with the Lpac. The DIBELS TRC assessment should be administered during small group instruction. Check out the frequently asked questions page for crisis distance learning at utla.net. UTLA members, you all are amazing for the work that you are doing in the classroom and in our schools, for the work you do outside of it. It's all connected to supporting our communities and fighting for change. I want to recognize a few folks who are stepping up into new ways. Jeanette Duran Aguirre, a counselor at Marlton School, is the new president of the California Educators of the Deaf. And UTLA board member Mallory Evans is on the group's executive board. Jeanette says she is inspired by transformative social justice and people coming together to break down the stigmas and bringing awareness of positivity in those stigmas. She's inspired by creating communities of accountability and acceptance. She's inspired by deaf students' resiliency and curiosity to learn, seeing them grow and empower themselves for transformative change. Jeanette is going to be an amazing president of that organization. On the national stage, Mark Twain Middle School English teacher and UTLA chapter chair, David Bloom, has been named to Joe Biden's Education Policy Committee. How powerful to have a UTLA member at that table. Bloom says he's extremely excited for the opportunity to represent public school teachers for the next president of the United States and to bring his perspective as a practicing public school educator to help guide policy papers currently being crafted. Bloom asked to be assigned to specific federal policy subcommittees so he could advocate against federal high-stakes testing mandates and federal charter school funding. We have Emily Reyes, who was such a force of nature at Crescent Heights and now is making her mark at Laurel Elementary. Emily has been sworn in as the new Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance's Vice President and Executive Board Member for the LA chapter. Wow, to all of you great folks. Your passion is amazing. A huge congratulations also goes to two educators who were just named LAUSD Teachers of the Year and have now advanced to the LA County Teachers of the Year. Let's give it up for Rhiannon Chavez, who teaches 4th grade at 186th Street Elementary School. And my girl, Hazel Kite Witham, teaching English at Venice High School. We see you, we appreciate you, and we celebrate you. Go get them. Okay, I know we have some Lakers fans out there. I'm one too. Lakers. The team is making a charge for the championship. I believe it can happen. But I have to say, the game last week was almost ruined for me when an ad came on the television attacking our school board candidate, Scott Schmerelson. We know the media demands top dollar for Lakers ad time. It isn't cheap. But when you have billionaires like Jim Walton of Walmart and Reed Hastings of Netflix spending $1 million in one day alone to attack Scott, I guess they can afford a Lakers ad. But we can't let those billionaires win. They're trying to buy our school board again, and they're trying to take down Proposition 15. Prop 15 is one step towards fixing property tax inequities in California. It will finally close long-standing loopholes for corporations and require corporations like Chevron, Disney, and Anheuser-Busch to pay their fair share. Catskills elementary teacher and UTLA board member Elizabeth Untitled has been working hard to pass Proposition 15, and this is what she posted about it. She wrote, "Can't stop, won't stop. Still tired since March 2020, but still wide awake." That's exactly it. We are tired, we are wide awake. We see how desperate these corporations are to protect their unfair tax advantages. We're tired, but we are wide awake to how the systemic underfunding of our schools are and how deeply our students, our babies, deserve more resources. Everyone, you need to vote. You need to get on the phone with voters. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, every registered voter in California will be getting a mail-in ballot. Everything ramps up next week because ballots start landing in mailboxes. And now it's crunch time. Now is the time to have the conversations with these voters. We need to reach as many people as we can before they fill out those ballots, before they see any more attack ads on TV or read lies in their mailers. If you haven't phone banked yet, carve out some time next week and sign up to phone bank voters at lateachers.org/campaign now. We'll put that link in the chat below. We brought the heat to a big funder of Prop 15's opposition on September 30th, this past Wednesday, with a car caravan and rally outside the Chevron refinery in El Segundo. Chevron has contributed to the destabilization of our communities in many ways. climate destruction, giving to police organizations that resist reform, and funding the destructive presidency of Donald Trump. And when it comes to paying their fair share of taxes to fund schools and services, and maybe helping heal some of the trauma they leave behind, they say no. And they are fighting Prop 15 tooth and nail. So we were there to rise up against corporate greed with students, parents, and community members from ACE, Lane, Students Deserve, and Reclaim Our Schools LA. Our AFT president, Randy Weingarten, and her executive officers were out there with us, launching her national bus tour, From Our Action. The protest was a part of a national day of resistance, joining actions across the country to demand healthy homes, healthy schools, and healthy communities. October is Filipino American History Month, and I want to shine a light on a groundbreaking Filipino American, labor leader Larry Italong. His work is too often left out of the history books. And that's another reason why ethnic studies is so vitally important for our young people. In 1965, Italong organized 2,000 Filipino farm workers to march off to the California vineyards, demanding $1.40 an hour and the right to form a union. That's how the famous Delano grape strike began. Soon after, Mexican farm workers under the leadership of Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta voted unanimously to join the Filipino farm worker strike. Italong survived extreme poverty, violent racism, to leave a legacy of activism and to teach generations that organizing can uplift the marginalized. His story needs to be told. In this time of a pandemic, we also mark Filipino American History Month by acknowledging the essential labor of Filipino Americans, labor that is performed at great risk to themselves. Filipinos make up 4% of nurses in the US, but Filipinos are 31.5% of the deaths of nurses from COVID-19. They are paying the ultimate price for serving during this pandemic. We can honor their sacrifice and protect essential workers by staying safe, staying home, and staying masked. Until next time, be well, UTLA. Get some rest. I know you need it. I do too. Stay UTLA strong, because together we rise.